South Korea is in deep trouble. Its birth rate has plummeted to 0.72 children per woman, the lowest in the world. That means that on average, less than 3 out of 4 Korean women have a child. Since it takes 2 people to make a baby, this is not a sustainable dynamic. This demographic crisis will implode the nation's economy and social fabric in the decade ahead. But this will have far-reaching implications outside the Korean peninsula. South Korea's largest company, Samsung, is the world's 39th largest firm and makes up 22% of the country's entire GDP. South Korea is also one of the world's top 10 military arms exporters and a key ally in countering China. And North Korea is sitting across the border, waiting to pounce on any perceived weakness. So, if one of the greatest economic miracles of the last century is about to come undone, what happens next? Now, this video was already in production when on December 3rd, the president of South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol, declared martial law. The whole country was locked down for like less than a day. Parliament came in, overruled the martial law, and everything kind of went back to normal in less than 48 hours. But this represents the fundamental instability underneath the veneer of South Korean society. And when you think of South Korea, at least as an outsider, I think a lot of people would actually associate it with relative stability since the Korean War. But listen to these statistics. Since its founding in 1948, South Korea has had 13 presidents. 2 have been overthrown, 6 have been imprisoned, and President Yoon is the second to be impeached. So the South Korean government is far from a stable institution, and there are some major sources of pressure that could potentially cause the dam to break. South Korea's transformation from an impoverished, war-torn nation to an economic powerhouse began in the 1960s, known as the Miracle on the Han River. Within a single generation, the country evolved from an agrarian society into a highly industrialized nation. By 1990, South Korea had become the world's largest shipbuilder and 3rd largest car manufacturer globally. The South Korean government and chaebols, large family-owned conglomerates, were the key architects of this economic miracle. Companies like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG grew into global titans, driving rapid industrialization and technological innovation. The government's 5-year economic plans strategically targeted heavy and chemical industries, channeling massive investments into sectors like steel, shipbuilding, and electronics. This economic model produced remarkable results, with the country's gross national product reaching $100 billion by 1988 and surpassing the $1 trillion mark in 2006. The average Korean standard of living has improved dramatically from the 1950s, although the wealth gap has expanded as a small slice of South Koreans have gotten crazy rich. By 2022, South Korea was ranked 11th worldwide by number of ultra-high net worth people. This growing stockpile of wealth has led South Koreans to build collections of assets that range from stocks to real estate. But one market has been exploding in popularity, both in South Korea and around the world: fine art. The amount of artwork sold in South Korea more than doubled between 2019 and 2022, with the country ranking 7th in the world on contemporary art auction turnover. And this is a movement that we've seen globally as the ultra-rich look to diversify and invest their cash. At New York City's famous auctions, a $6.2 million banana just made headlines, alongside several new artists' records climbing into the tens and even hundreds of millions. Luckily, with Masterworks, today's sponsor, you can get in on the action without needing millions of dollars or art experience. Diversifying your own wealth into fine art is easy with icons like Banksy or Picasso, with Masterworks recently posting another profitable return from selling a Basquiat painting for $8 million earlier this year. This summer, they crossed over $1 billion in capital raised, offering paintings that typically range from $500,000 to $20 million. Although with Masterworks, you don't need to spend millions or be an art expert. They handle every step of the process with live advisors you can ask any question. As the art market makes headlines again, Masterworks offerings can sell out quickly, but they gave me a link so you can get priority access. Just use the QR code on the screen, the link in the description, or go to masterworks.art/Aaron Watson. Beneath the surface of South Korea's success story, a paradox has been brewing. As South Korea's economy soared, its population growth began to falter. The chaebol-driven growth model, while effective in rapidly industrializing the nation, created extreme wealth inequality and fostered a work culture characterized by long hours, intense competition, and high levels of stress. As South Koreans poured their energy into building an economic powerhouse, personal lives took a back seat. Then, the Asian financial crisis of 1997 hit, exposing vulnerabilities in the Korean economic model. Economic growth in South Korea slowed substantially. Marriage rates and birth rates both dropped in the face of mass layoffs and economic uncertainty. The crisis challenged the traditional male breadwinner model as women entered the workforce out of necessity, changing family dynamics and gender roles. The average age of first marriage increased notably in the years following the crisis, and many couples delayed having children due to financial insecurity. Today, it's that economic stagnation paired with a demographic crisis that puts the economic miracle achieved by South Korea over the last 50 years into jeopardy. As you can see, South Korea's population is vanishing at an alarming rate. In 2023, the number of newborns plummeted to just 230,000, a more than 7% drop from the previous year. The fertility rate, which measures the average number of children a woman will have over her lifetime, is crucial for understanding this demographic crisis. A rate of 2.1 children per woman is necessary for a country to maintain its population. South Korea's fertility rate has plunged to 0.72 children per woman, the lowest in the world. This unprecedented decline means that a group of 100 South Koreans would shrink to just 6 individuals over 4 generations, threatening the very fabric of South Korean society. The trajectory of this decline is staggering. Back in the 1960s, the fertility rate in South Korea was 6 children per woman. South Korea's sub-1 fertility rate sets it apart from other countries facing demographic challenges, charting a course into unknown waters. In every other society in modern history, young workers prop up the elderly by paying taxes that go to social services and funding pension systems. But as the younger generation shrinks smaller and smaller, at some point, there will not be enough young workers to provide social services. It's like a Ponzi scheme that runs out of new contributors. The rapid pace of decline could lead to a cascade of social and economic challenges. Schools close due to lack of students, entire towns become ghost towns as young people migrate to urban centers, and industries struggle to find workers. The South Korean government has invested more than $286 billion over the past decade in social programs aimed at encouraging family formation. These initiatives range from cash bonuses for newborns to subsidized childcare and housing support for young families. Yet, despite these massive investments, the fertility rate continues its downward spiral. South Korea has transformed into a pressure cooker society on the brink of implosion. The term Hyeoljoseon encapsulates the frustration of South Korean youth with a system that promises prosperity but delivers crushing pressure. Students sacrifice their childhood and adolescence for academic performance, spending excessive hours on private education that strains family finances. This intense focus stems from the belief that educational success is the only path to a secure future. However, the pressure doesn't end with graduation. College graduates face higher unemployment rates than those without degrees, competing in an oversaturated job market for limited prestigious positions. This phenomenon has been named elite overproduction by Peter Turchin to describe a society that produces too many elite members relative to its ability to absorb them into the power structure. It can become a cause of social instability as those left out of power feel aggrieved by their relatively low socioeconomic status. But even for those who secure employment, challenges persist. South Korean work culture is notorious for its long hours, often exceeding 50-hour work weeks. This intense work ethic exacts a heavy toll on mental health, leading South Korea to have the highest suicide rate among all OECD countries. And if workers begin to think about kids, the math is pretty grim. South Korea's cost of living has become particularly brutal for young adults. The financial burden of raising a child amounts to more than 7 times the country's median salary, making it the most expensive place globally to start a family. Housing prices in the capital, Seoul, are the primary driver of this economic pressure. The average apartment in Seoul costs over $740,000, with the median home price a staggering 14 times the median income. This ratio far exceeds affordable housing standards and mirrors issues in other rapidly developing Asian economies. As you can see, the demographics and the economics are pretty grim. We're about to get into geopolitics, but before we do that, please leave a like on this video. Helps the channel grow, helps our video get seen by more people so that we can create other informative videos like this. The Korean Peninsula is one of the toughest geopolitical neighborhoods. It is attached to China, one of the largest and most aggressive continental powers in the world. To the north is Russia, and across the Korean Strait sits Japan, historically the region's top naval power. And on top of all that, right on South Korea's border, is the 160-mile-long, 2.5-mile-wide Korean Demilitarized Zone. On the other side of the DMZ sits North Korea, with whom they went to war with in the early 1950s. In response to all of this pressure, the South Korean economy has pushed extremely hard to industrialize. In a series of 5-year economic plans, Koreans utilized state capitalism to stand up shipbuilding, automobile, and semiconductor capabilities. Today, Samsung and Hyundai are global leaders in these areas, which have created the foundation of South Korea's indigenous defense companies. While all of South Korea's neighbors have their own demographic challenges, they will each be interested to take advantage of South Korea's situation. Because up until recently, you could be pretty confident that the United States would intervene in any aggressive action taken in East Asia. The US's largest overseas base is Camp Humphreys in South Korea. But on both sides of the aisle, US foreign policy leaders have been applying pressure on allies to increase their defense spending and collaborate to economically weaken China, Russia, and Iran. At 2.7% of GDP, South Korea is already a big spender on defense. But it has been reluctant to get on board with a US chip ban aimed at reducing China's access to advanced computing. While Japan and the Netherlands have obliged, South Korea's extensive sale of chips and chip-making equipment into China has continued. As the US steps back into an increasingly isolationist posture, it's slights like these that will lead to negative ramifications. And if the United States is not providing a security guarantee in East Asia, South Korea is likely to be the most negatively affected stakeholder. This is a perilous balancing act, and South Korea does not have a lot of bargaining power. Now, none of these are new problems. After the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the government identified cultural exports as a potential economic growth engine. It made significant investment into creative industries through the Ministry of Culture. State-sponsored cultural promotion agencies paired with entertainment conglomerates to develop systematic star-making systems. Rigorous professional training systems for artists and performers rapidly improved the quality and integration of South Korean music, TV, film, and advertising industries. Today, K-pop, Korean drama, and K-beauty have exploded in cultural relevance. Squid Games, League of Legends, and BTS are global mega hits. But they've been less successful at turning around the birth rate. Over 2 decades, South Korea spent more than $286 billion on social programs to boost the fertility rate. Their most ambitious project to address declining fertility was the creation of Sejong City. This new administrative capital was designed to decentralize the population and provide a family-friendly environment with affordable housing, excellent schools, and a better work-life balance. Despite these massive investments, the results were disappointing. Many government employees continue to live in Seoul and commute long distances to Sejong City. The city struggled to attract private sector businesses and cultural amenities, undermining its goal of becoming a vibrant alternative to the capital. Furthermore, the government's approach, focused primarily on financial incentives and infrastructure, underestimated the profound cultural shifts occurring among young Koreans. The rise of the Sampo generation, rejecting traditional milestones like marriage and parenthood, suggest that the issue ran deeper than economic considerations alone. Now, the 4B movement is gathering momentum among young Korean women who swear off 4 things in response to gender-based violence: no sex with men, no giving birth, no dating men, no marrying men. This is perhaps the most pessimistic cultural setup that I have ever come across. In modern history, there have been just a few leaders that radically changed the trajectory of their countries. In Asia, I'd count only Shinzo Abe of Japan and Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. Without a similar great leader, South Korea will continue down the scariest downward spiral of any developed economy. Let me know if you agree in the comments, then go check out our video on how Lee Kuan Yew saved Singapore.